Hey, I'm Dan, and this is Dan's Planes. I've got my miracle switches all set up. What that means is this miracle switch that is a MPI, Max Products Inc.'s miracle switch. It's a voltage regulator and a failsafe switch. So again, if my mechanical switches fail, then they're going to fail on with power, so I would not lose power in the middle of a flight. So this lead being yellow, that's for the failsafe. So I've connected a 6-inch lead to it and used heat shrink to connect these. I shouldn't ever need to pull these apart. I've labeled it at the main lead and labeled it here. So this will go to switch 2. This is MPI Miracle Switch Failsafe 2. Then I made another lead, again switch 2 and switch 2. This one goes to the battery. I used different wiring to be able to tell the difference. Then I did another switch 2, and this one again with the heat shrink. This one is for the receiver, where I'm going to plug into the battery slot. Then there are 2 leftover leads, which I just wrap those with Velcro just to try to keep them together a little bit cleaner. So then I'm going to put them in here, like this, next to each other. The other one will go here, and then I'll strap them in place with wire ties or pull ties. So then it takes a little finagling to get all the wires underneath, but I think it looks cleaner that way, having the wires go under there, rather than some other option. So I have them go through here. Then I connect it up to a switch for one of them. Then the other one goes through here to hook into the receiver. And then this one stays out here for a battery lead. And then the switch, I use a retaining clip there. So then when I put the batteries in the plane, then I'll plug them in here and use a retaining clip, and all will be good. So that's how these go. So I'll have 2 batteries going to 2 miracle switches, and the 2 miracle switches going to the receiver. So that's battery backup with fail-safe switches on both. That's going to be the end objective. Okay, so this turned out to be more of a chore than I thought it was going to be. So I got all the wires routed through underneath the plate, this plate here. And then I was trying to get these wire ties through, which I could get my finger underneath the plate to put this one through that hole, but there was no way I could reach through this hole. So I'm thinking, how am I going to do that? So I used a Dremel, cut out a notch in the plate. It didn't quite cut all the way through, so I went to pull out the piece that I cut, and the whole plate came off. The CA that I put on just broke off. So I don't know if it was old CA or if I was bonding CA to wood, if I wasn't wood to wood. I don't know what the issue is, but anyway, it came off. So since it came off, I was able to put these wire ties through. And what I decided to do is just put a dot of glue on each rail, affix it, then tap or drill 4 screw holes. And I hate using slotted screws, but those are all that I had in the size that I wanted and needed and that matched each other. So I put those in, which then I put in 2 wrong holes here, completely missing the wood underneath. I don't know what I did there, what I was smoking. I guess I was smoking crack. So anyway, she's now mounted and not going anywhere. There's a little piece of white foam underneath there. I squeezed these down the best I could, but I figured, there's a good chance that someday in the future I'm going to have to take this plate off again or pull all these wires out again to maintain something. So the way it is now, I've got my two battery leads that'll hook right into my battery and will be kept on with the servo keeper. Servo keeper. Then I've got my two switches. I haven't put on my other keeper yet. And then this is corralling all my wires that are going into the receiver. So I guess the next thing I've got to do here is get this receiver mounted. There used to be a Futaba in here. That's why it's gone and why I had to put this Spectrum in there. So figuring out, putting that in and then figuring out where the satellites are going to go, that is the next step. And I'm not a Spectrum guy. I'm new to Spectrum, so something sticks in my mind that I heard that these satellite antennas, you're supposed to install them so they're not going the same direction, but they kind of cross each other. So I got to read on that or ask somebody about that, see if that's true. So there's also putting in the electric kill switch, which means shortening this wire and cutting this wire shorter and putting this in. So probably going to put this in next, probably about here, and then the receiver will go here. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. See you later. I think I talked about these tools in another segment, but these are so dang handy. Having just a basic hook made out of a hanger, a wire hanger, just making a hook out of it. And then whatever this thing is, that it's got this on one end, and then it's got a little hook on the other end. While I was at work, somebody had their printer worked on, and after the technician left, they had left this tool. And they didn't need it, so they gave it to me. And I tell you, these things have been so stinking handy, so I'd recommend having these on hand for sure. I've also got one of these hooks in my field box for out at the field. This man, it just comes in handy. That is all. Here we are with the air system hooked up. I finished everything on the inside, which I'll show a better view in the next segment, but I wanted to connect the wings to make sure that the flaps were still operating like they should, the ailerons like they should, my gear switch like it should. And I figured while I'm testing all of that, I may as well hook up the airlines and see if I have any leaks. And what do you know? There are leaks. So, pretty typical. So I've gone through first, before seeing if there were any leaks, I went through and I did a silicone spray on all of the pistons and the O-rings that I could get to. And I cycled, not enough times. I'm going to do it again, but I cycled it about 5-6 times before it was out of air, which, if I remember right, my top flight Mustang, I want to say I get 20 or 30 cycles out of that crazy thing, if I remember right. So I was kind of surprised to only get 5 or 6 out of this, but so be it. These gear are way more stout than the Mustangs, that's for sure. So next step is the old soap and water trick. I've got an eyedropper with some soap and water, and I just put it on different spots, and all the T intersections, like these guys. And I notice when I'm filling, it's leaking air in the fill. So we shall see. That's the next step. Then I'll take the wing apart again. And I found out that, as I thought, the tail wheel, which is on a different servo than the rudder, the tail wheel is moving in the opposite direction of the rudder. And I can't just reverse it, they're both using a Y to go into. So I've ordered a servo reversing lead. So once that comes in, then I'll hook that up and we'll get these things operating in the same direction. Here's the internal compartment now. So switches are mounted over here. Then wiring goes to either 2 switches here or up to the 2 battery leads. Batteries are going to go on this plate here. Then these are 2 flaps and 2 ailerons. Receiver there. There is the electronic cutoff or ignition kill switch. So I've got on order that servo reversing lead because I'd either have to swap out the brand of this servo and tweak my pull, and setting up all this was a chunk of work, or I'd have to swap out this servo, which is for the tail wheel, but I don't see how you can really get in here. I think what happened is he probably set up the servo, set up the pull, screwed it into the blocks, and then when everything was all said and done, then glued it onto here. That's what I would bet happened. Because I just don't see getting your hands in here and getting a screwdriver in here with any sort of accuracy. Then I put one satellite over here, put another satellite over here. Now on the battery tray, I'm going to CG this, but I'm going to CG it after I do the painting and after I figure out the leak, which I already know that the air fill right down there is leaking. So it's not just when I'm filling it, but it's leaking when you take off the fill, as well as it's leaking now. So the batteries will go in the battery tray, and I've not seen this kind of setup before, where we've got kind of a crisscross of zip ties. So I'm not quite sure how that was going to hold the batteries. Maybe doing a zip tie across this way, because that's what happened here on the gas tank. There's one zip tie around here, another zip tie around here, and then a zip tie running between the 2 zip ties. So maybe that was the idea for the battery. Not totally sure, but I think we'll just have to see what's going on with that once I cross that bridge. But at least the inside is done for now. I know this is leaking a lot from my soap and water test. So I now see I should have left the retracts in the up position so I could reach in here to get a wrench on there so I can loosen this nut to then push this through, pull it out, remove the air feed, and then put a different fill in there. So that's what I'm going to have to do next. Lucky for you, it'll be only a few seconds. Okay, y'all, I am stumped, and maybe you guys can help. I don't know. I'm stumped actually on several things. So I replaced the air input valve, which was a bare. If you might remember, there was a 5/8 nut behind. I couldn't get pliers in there to save my life. I just had to jury rig something to work, so I finally got it replaced. got to replace that's not leaking here or where the tube connects. So that's good. But where I am is, if my gear is up, I am losing 5 pounds of pressure in 15 minutes. If my gear is down, I'm losing 15 pounds of pressure in 15 minutes. And this gear is so hefty that it takes a lot of air to get it pushed. So I have gone through, and at every place I could find a connection, a tubing connection, I've gone through and done the soap and water trick, and nothing seems to be leaking. So I don't know where this leak is coming from. Before I did that, I used my liquid wrench silicone spray and I put it on both sides of the piston actuator, and I put it here where and around these O-rings, and I actually put some up in here so it would go into the line, so it could blow through the line to get to any other O-rings that I can't get to. There are some lines that I can't get to, without actually pulling out the retracts. I could get to the red line, I think it was in here, but I could not get to the blue line. The same is true, excuse me, for the main retracts. So now what do I do? That's the question for the group. So the next thing I can think of is just replacing stuff, starting with the tubing, figuring that is what would become old and cracked at first. I've got some on order, but I'm not seeing air leaks. Goliath, get down. You're not on that shelf. Get off of there. Oh, God, eyes in the back of my head. So I don't know what to do about it. Maybe you guys have some thoughts, but it seems like replacing stuff, starting with the tubing, is maybe the first step. I don't know. So besides that, off of there. Besides that, I'm going to be painting after I figure out this air issue. I'm going to paint blue and red stripes on the rudder, and then the whole thing needs a clear coat, because it can have a little area here and I rub it with my fingers and paint comes off. The problem is I don't know what kind of paint the person used. I need to find a similar silver. I mean, there are a couple different tones of silver, and then what he did is he scratch padded one direction and then scratch padded a different direction, helping to simulate panel lines. So I don't know paints, meaning I don't know what the best course of action is for applying a paint on top of another paint when the paint is unknown. Girl, now you give me grief. So you want to test it in an inconspicuous area, so I can test the clear coat on this green, but that's not silver. And if I look at what's under the cowl, that's green, and then a grayish white. If I want to test the silver, this panel here, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, is slightly a different color than the other panels. So that could be a good panel to, number one, test the silver to see if it's going to be a good match or not. Number two, to see if it's going to peel or whatnot. As far as the white goes, I could maybe tape off the panel lines so that this part here is the only part that I do clear coat on, to see if that's going to be an issue. Try to keep my testing to the bottom. As far as the rudder goes, maybe I just go for it. Just do the red and white stripes. And if it gets screwed up, then I don't know how to remove paint off of shrink covering, which I don't know what brand shrink covering this is, being SkyShark. But maybe I'd find a way to remove the paint and just paint it white again and then redo the red and blue again. But this thing is getting all kind of dinged up from hanger rash. It's really bothering me because I wish I had this clear coat on here. But I'm excited that figure out the air, figure out the paint, then can finally fire this beast up. And the last thing will be CG. And I think I'm going to try a Vanessa rig for the first time. I found a large-scale CG machine that I could get, but I hear that the Vanessa rig is the most accurate way to do it, and it seems like setting up a Vanessa rig would also be one of the cheaper ways to do it too. So hey, there's that. But I'm excited. Hope you guys are excited too, and looking forward to any comments on any kind of help with air or paint. Talk at you later. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dan from Dan's Planes. I just want to share some content about RC planes, something I've been passionate about since childhood. I'm hoping I can teach something to someone, I can start some discussion and learn some things from others. So let's just have some fun and learn some things together. If you enjoyed what you watched, it would really help me out if you could like, subscribe, and share. And if you feel that it helped you out in some way, or it might help future viewers, I'd really appreciate it if you'd visit my Patreon page and become a patron. It's like throwing a $1 tip into a guitar case when you pass by. It helps to fund future content and future projects that I'll be working on. I plan to show some past content. I have some other flights and I have some fly-in events that I've been to. And I also plan to show future flights and future repairs, as well as building ARFs, and if I can ever get back to it, building my top flight Spitfire. So there's a lot of content to come, but it's viewers like you that are able to support what I'm doing, and by doing that, I'm able to spend more time creating that content in the future. So I'd really appreciate it. But either way, thanks for watching, and thanks for any support, and I wish you blue skies and good speed.